Hey everybody, it's JJ Conway. I'm so excited to be here with you today. We are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics. It's the third Thursday, and every third Thursday we talk about real estate. And so today's topic is how to avoid real estate scams. And I'm super excited about this because a lot of people are afraid of investing in real estate. And especially if you're a person of integrity, sometimes you go to real estate trainings and it feels like the only way to profit from real estate investing is if you kind of become a scamster, and nobody wants to feel icky or gross when they're making money. So wait, maybe that didn't come out right, because there are a whole lot of people out there who don't mind scamming somebody to make a quick buck. But if you are let me say that again, because I've got my little one in here, and apparently that word did not come out correctly. All right. So a lot of times we go to these real estate conferences, we go to these real estate trainings, we get in that hotel room, and they regale us with all this fantastic stuff we're going to be able to do if we just pop down our $1,000 and come to their in-person boot camp training. And then we get to the boot camp training, and all of a sudden we feel like in order to make money with real estate, now we have to get all salesy and slimy, and we have to steal people's houses out from under them, or we have to compromise our integrity. Well, I'm here to tell you that is not the case. In fact, I'm going to show you today how to avoid real estate scams and how to avoid falling into the same boat as real estate scammers. My goal for everybody who watches one of my classes or participates in one of my classes is to build wealth ethically and quickly. And real estate is one of the best ways to do just that. So what are we talking about tonight? Tonight we are talking about how to avoid real estate scams. And I'm going to ask you to do two things before I get into the meat of the lesson. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to let me know if you can hear me. All right. So if you are on live today, let me know that you can hear me. Either drop it in the chat, do some hearts or likes or loves or something, because we have had 2 internet cables cut this week and they stopped the internet for like hours. And so I'm concerned that maybe I'm seeing myself on the camera here, but maybe you're not hearing what I have to say, because I keep seeing people get on and get off. And this time I'm not taking 20 minutes to get to my point. So I just want to make sure that y'all can hear what I'm saying. All right. So what we're going to be talking about again is how to avoid real estate scams. All right. Before we get into how to avoid real estate scams, I want to let you know that we have to be very careful what we call a scam. See, a lot of times we make a bad business decision and we call that a scam. Okay. And so I'm going to illustrate the difference between a scam and not a scam. Okay. So when I go to the real estate investor meeting, and I encourage everybody to go to the real estate investor meeting. When you go to the real estate investor meeting, if you go there, they're usually going to have a speaker who tells you some things about real estate and about their method of investing in real estate. And they will tell you some good, actionable information. If it's a quality club, they're going to give you some good, actionable information that you can actually do something with that night, right? However, they will also, this is how they make their money, and this is how the club keeps their costs down. They will also sell you something from the back of the room that allows you to dig deeper. All right. That is a very solid business model. That is not a scam business model. Now, if you buy course after course after course and don't do anything with it, well, that's not a scam. It may not be a good course. It may be a bad business decision, but that's not a scam. It may be inactivity on our part because we get into it and we realize they made it sound like it was so easy, but it really wasn't so easy. But that's why we join a local club, right? So we can learn from local investors. But that's not a scam. That's either poor packaging, poor product, procrastination on our part, but it's not a scam. Flip that to another kind of real estate club that I've been a member of. And oh, y'all, this is one of my bigger failures. You would think I'm about to talk about one of my deals, but one of my biggest failures as somebody who teaches others how to invest in real estate was actually recommending people to a club that was a spammy, scammy club. So I had moved away from the DC area where I had attended groups led by Sherman Ragland and his wife Claire in Northern Virginia. And um, let me say that again. I had attended clubs in DC, the DC, Northern Virginia, Maryland area, run by several reputable real estate investors: Sherman Ragland, his wife Claire, Tammy Phelps, and also up in Baltimore, Maria, with Alan Shanker, and Mary Jo and Beth and all them. And then there was another one that I attended on with regularity, BWI. I don't remember who it was because I was pregnant at the time, y'all. Forgive me. But they were good groups. They were solid groups. And I moved away and I came back and I confused Claire's group that used to be in Northern Virginia with another group that was in Northern Virginia. And I got to this group and it wasn't quite the same woman I remembered, but I didn't realize she had been Sherman's wife. I just knew that there weren't that many dark-skinned women teaching real estate. All right. And so here was this dark-skinned woman teaching real estate. So I had my whole list, my whole Building Wealth Together group. I was like, go to this group, go to this group, go to this group, because everything they were promising was like the group that I had been in when I lived in DC the first time. And I was convinced in my heart it was the same group that was connected to Sherman's Maryland group. Okay. But it wasn't. In fact, nothing that they promised ever came to fruition. The tools that were in their website didn't work. And when I first joined, they're like, oh, yeah, we're updating. Well, 2 months later, 3 months later, 6 months later, they're still always updating, never putting together a viable product. And none of the leadership in that group seemed to care. Now, that was a scam. Okay. And so let's talk about another level of scam. Okay. So, and I'm going to get to the real estate investing part of it in a second, but I really want everybody to understand the difference between a scam and not a scam. And before I do that, I want to give a couple of shout outs. I want to thank Tammy for being on the line. I want to thank Dennis for being on the line today. I appreciate y'all's support. Appreciate the shout out, brother. I do my best to do what God has called me to do, which is equip his people how to win with money and at life. And so I'm getting some new shirts made, y'all. I'm gonna get some new shirts made. Now we're gonna go back to our roots in 2023. We're gonna go back to our original tagline. We're gonna go back to what it was I originally started out to do, which was originally to focus on God's people. I know that doesn't make a whole lot of money, and I know I made a whole lot more money going after everybody. But the thing is, at the end of the day, I can't help who I am. I can't help who I am, but I choose to be who God called me to be. And every time I would teach a secular class, well, the scriptures would just come on out. So I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just make it easy on myself and do what God called me to do? We can talk a little bit later about why I didn't include so much religion in my teachings and stuff, because really, quite frankly, a lot of people are scared of religions. They've been done wrong by the church. And in fact, many people look at churches as a scam. And I know a lot of people who started churches as a scam. They started churches just to get money. They started churches to get power. They started churches because they didn't feel good about themselves and they wanted to be a leader of men. But that doesn't necessarily equate to being powerful with God. All right, let me get off that soapbox. Let me get off behind that pulpit, and let's talk some more about real estate. So I really want people to understand today, some things are scams, some things are circumstance, some things are poorly packaged, and some things are just, quite frankly, our own failure to use what we spent our money on. You know, there was my very first, let me tell you this story. My very first real estate investment association meeting. It was in Bowie, Maryland at the Firehouse. And it was a Saturday, and there were all these investors, like 200 people in there. And I'm in this room and I'm just amazed at what I'm hearing. And so the speaker that day, I'll never forget it. The speaker that day was Larry Goins. One of the reasons I'll never forget it is because I didn't buy his class. We bought another class that was even more expensive, and I felt bad for the guy because people were flocking to buy the class that was more expensive, but it was sold by the local investor instead of buying his class. Well, I eventually went back and bought his class because he gave me so much value through his free offerings over the next 2 years. But in that moment, I was so excited about this new venture and this new journey. It led me to becoming a Maryland professional foreclosure consultant. And I loved being a Maryland professional foreclosure consultant because it allowed me to help people. But before I bought that class, before I took those classes, before I did anything with it, I'm talking to all of these investors and I'm just so excited. But I noticed a curious thing. You know what I noticed about a lot of these investors? A lot of these investors were like the guy that I talked to right as we were standing in line. He told me he had spent $80,000 on his real estate investing education. And I said, wow, how many houses have you bought? And he said, oh, none. But I believe that this course is going to be the one that helps me move forward. Well, I'm here to tell you today, it doesn't matter how much you spend on real estate education or don't spend on real estate education. If you don't get up off your hind parts, you're never going to make it happen. And in fact, for $80,000 out of pocket, many of us can go out and learn through the school of hard knocks about investing in real estate. Now, of course, I don't want you to do that. I want you to sign up for my real estate stuff, which you can go to DARTREIA, that's dartrea.com, and you can sign up for my classes. We'll be kicking off a new series of classes in 2023. It's going to be bigger and better than ever, y'all. But in the meantime, I want you to understand what this person had done. This was 2007, okay? You could still buy quality homes in Baltimore City for $25,000, put $5,000 or $6,000 into them and rent them out for an income. Okay, so today those houses where we're going for 25,000, maybe today they might be going for 100,000 or maybe 120,000 if they're quality properties, right? But back then, the $80,000 he could have been done bought several properties. And he could have put into place the currency of real estate, which the currency of real estate is deals and making it happen. And if he had put in place the currency of real estate, the deals, the making it happen, the actually closing on a property and seeing that project through, then he would have attracted more deals, because then people would have saw that he did something very few people at these real estate investor meetings ever do. And that is take action. And we take a whole lot of action when it comes to buying classes. And I love when people buy my classes. I love to wake up to see those words, notification of payment received. Love it, love it, love it all day long. Well, you know what I love even more than waking up to mailbox money or waking up to online teaching money? I like seeing you succeed. I want you to succeed. I want you to make more money. I want you to have greater peace in your life. I want you to do what God has called you to do. And I know there are a lot of people out there who preach prosperity. This is not a prosperity kind of class. Okay, I want you to have prosperity, but I don't make God into a genie, right? But at the same time, there are so many people in the same Bible that we use to beat others down about building wealth, that we use to make them feel bad about wanting to build wealth. There are so many in the Bible who did well with their wealth. Ooh, I'm on fire, y'all. And I'm not going to go crazy on it today, but you got to understand there are a lot of things out there that want to separate you from your money and more importantly from your power. And some of these false beliefs we have about wealth, they are actually scams of other organizations designed to keep you down. Ooh, yeah. Okay. All right. So let's talk specifically about real estate scams. Okay. And again, we want to be able to distinguish what really is a scam versus what isn't. And we don't want to blame people. We don't want to badmouth people. We don't want to slander people, talk bad about people for doing what they do when really we didn't do our full research. At the same time, though, this world has greatly changed. If you're my age or older, you grew up in a world without internet. If you're my age or older, you grew up in a world where, for the most part, you could let your children run around. I know we traipsed all around Germany when my parents didn't care where we were. There were no cell phones. There were no apps to track where we were. We just went and did what we did, and we just got to be home on time. The world has changed mightily. And so we need to be aware that there are a lot of scams out there that are especially taking advantage of older people. Not just the buy me a gift card and give me the numbers over the phone. Okay, that's one level of scam that's so popular right now. And a lot of older people don't understand that concept, because guess what? When they were kids, there was no such thing as gift cards. When they were coming of age, credit was just starting to be a thing. You didn't go get a prepaid Visa. There wasn't such a thing. And so sometimes it's really easy to be judgmental and to really talk down to or look down on people who've fallen into scams. And I had a client I'm working with right now. She was over $100,000 in debt from somebody who pretended to fall in love with her. And we think, oh, how on earth could you make that mistake? Surely you would know by the fact that you hadn't met him in person that he was up to no good. Well, you know what? Back in her day, people went away for military or other purposes for extended periods of time. People met and fell in love, and that was and they were separated in certain times, or people made a commitment and they were together for a long time just based off that commitment. Now the world has changed rapidly, but one of the things that I'm discovering is that the world changes rapidly. If you have certain injuries, if you have certain diseases, if you have certain issues going on emotionally, or if you've been eating food, some of this processed food, it incapacitates you from being able to understand and adapt to the newness of the world. Okay, so we want to make sure we arm ourselves and protect ourselves from scams. And one of the biggest areas that you will find scams are is when you start trying to invest in real estate. Okay, so we're going to talk about some scams in real estate, and we're going to talk about some things that aren't scams. Okay, first thing, let's talk about real estate investment meetings. How do you avoid scams in real estate investment meetings? Is it a scam if somebody charges you? Not necessarily. Many reputable real estate investment groups will allow you to have a free trial, maybe one free meeting or two free meetings. But for the most part, if they are really doing things that are providing value for you, then they are going to charge you a nominal fee. So nominal fee is going to be something like $100 a year, $200 a year, maybe in a metropolitan area, $300 a year. In a more rural or sparsely populated investor area, maybe $50 a year. But if I go to a meeting and the very first time they want me in there, they want $3,000 or $4,000 to be a member of their club, I'm going to need to have vetted those people and know that they really are 7 and 8 figure players before I join that group. A lot of the groups that are operating on that level should not be marketing to somebody to join their group who has never done a deal. Why? Because as much as you like to think you're amazing at real estate, and as much as I like to think I'm amazing at real estate, guess what? You're never good the first time. And it takes a couple of times to get good. It takes a couple of times to really know what you're looking at with the property. It takes a couple of times to really understand how to value, it takes some time to build relationship with the trades, because they got to know that you're in it to win it and that you're in it to stay. Tons of people sign up for a real estate course, and then they go out and they try to build a team of trades, and they try to build a team of realtors, and they try to build a team of mortgage brokers, or maybe even hard money lenders, which I don't really recommend, but we'll talk about that some other time. I understand that there's a lot of separate opinions on that. A lot of people go out and they try to put this whole team in place. You got this whole team in place, but then you can't deliver a deal. So if you can't deliver a deal, then that team falls apart. And so if I'm a wise tradesman, if I'm a wise realtor, if I'm a wise hard money lender, I'm not putting all my eggs in your basket till I know you know what you're talking about, and I know you know what you're doing. And guess how I know you know what you're doing? You do it well enough that you profit and you keep going. So if I'm operating on the 8-figure level, if I'm operating on the 8-figure level, and I want you to, this is one of those times I want you to hear my voice come to you when you're sitting in this meeting. You're in this meeting and everybody's talking about how they're billionaires and you haven't closed one deal yet, and your net worth is minus 100,000 because you still got car notes and you still got house payments and you still got to get these bills paid, and the check engine light on your car goes off and it stresses you out because you know you don't have the money. You're sitting in that room with people who are supposedly 8-figure ballers. Honey, they're not trying to bring you into that group so they can do right by you. 9 times out of 10, they're trying to bring you into that group because they know you're bad with money. You're going to pay them money. You're not going to do anything, and they're just going to make money off you. Now, I know that's mean. I know that's not nice. I know that's direct, but I don't know any other better way to say it. Okay? When you're in a room and you are outclassed by a couple commas, 9 times out of 10, the only person making money is going to be them who you paying money to. And I'm not saying there haven't been high earning people that have taken me under their wing and showed me a few things. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that the currency of business deals is deals and making it happen. And if you're in a place where all you can make happen is continue to pay and pay and pay and pay, you need to analyze that real quick. And you need to have my voice come back to you and say, something seems really strange here. All these high level people, they got all of us newbies in the room and they're promising us we're going to be millionaires next year. Something's up with that. And JJ said to run. And I want you to run. I'm not saying that once in a while somebody doesn't see something in you. But you got to understand that's one way that you can find a scam from a real reputable group. A real reputable group is going to be comprised of people who started off where you are and they worked their way up to where they are today. Even if they are multimillionaires, even if they are billionaires, they understand what it takes. But I'm telling you, watch out for people who dangle all these promises before you, and they don't have a long track record of people behind them who've made money. They got one or two people that have been with them for 10 years, but everybody else is a new churn. Okay, that's the kind of group you want to be aware of. Go to the meetings, get the free education, but watch and pay attention. Who's staying? Who's there year after year? Is it the same people, or is it a constant churn of newbies who don't know any better? All right. So don't think that a scam. Wait, how do I want to say that? Don't think that a real estate investment meeting is a scam just because they charge a real membership fee. Okay. Let me say that again. Don't think a real estate investor meeting is a scam just because they charge an investment or membership fee. I'm getting my words all tied up today. I want to make sure we understand clearly. There are some groups who charge fees and they're not going to help you invest in real estate. All they're doing is making money off your hopes and dreams by charging these exorbitant fees. But there are legit groups who charge fees. In fact, if I go to a group and they never charge any fees and they never sell anything in the back of the room, unless they're a new group or a starting up group, or it's a new venture on the part of the person who's in charge of it, I'm a little wary about where this is going. Okay. And I say that as somebody who runs a free real estate investment group. It doesn't charge to be to come to our meetings. It does charge to be a charter member. And in 2023, we're going back to our old model. Our old model is that you could come to the meetings for free, and we're going to still do the virtual classes for free. But at the same time, when it comes time to actually have the recordings and the MP3s that you can download to your phone and all of the tools that we have, all the real estate tools that we have, all of that, there's going to be a fee for all of that. So if you know that you want to be involved, you want to lock in your membership now before we get into the original pricing back in 2023, because we're going to be renting a location and it's going to be good, y'all. All right. So another thing I want to talk about with scams, I think I've kind of exhausted that, but if you have questions, put them in the chat. And I see that we've got some questions that aren't, or we've got some comments that aren't related to real estate at the moment. We'll get to those comments at the end if there's time. Okay. But if you have something related to real estate scams, I want you to give me those comments, okay? Because I don't want you to be afraid of investing in real estate. See, one of the things that keeps us paralyzed in poverty is that we are afraid to move forward. Oh, we'll move forward with all the free stuff. We'll move forward with all the non-committal stuff. We'll move forward with all the rearranging our desk a million times and making ourselves feel like we're getting into business. But we won't move forward on the things that require a commitment of time or money. And so if you want to move forward in your life, you have got to do something different than what you've been doing. You keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. But if you want to reach for something greater, if you want to reach for something more, if you want to change the direction of your family legacy, if you want to change your family tree, if you want to change the poverty, the generational cycles of poverty that have plagued your family, now is the time for you to take action. Now is the time for you to move forward in your life. Now is the time for you to stop saying, I'm gonna, and actually go. And you say, well, I just need a little bit more comfort. I just need a little bit more. I'm just worried. Well, that's what people like me are for. And so I'm going to recommend that you sign up for our Wealthy Me in 23 conference. We're going to be talking about real estate. We're going to be talking about crypto. We're going to talk about money management. We're going to be talking about money, what do you call it? Money mindset. We're going to be talking about all these things. In fact, it's going to be so good, y'all, that we are going to be in person and we are not broadcasting it publicly. Now, you know, a lot of my events, I've been broadcasting them publicly over the last 2 years because we're trying to reach as many people as possible. But for this particular event, I'm not trying to reach as many people as possible. You say, well, why aren't you trying to reach as many people as possible? Well, I'm not trying to reach as many people as possible. I'm trying to reach the people that are going to do something with their lives. I'm trying to reach the people. I'm trying to reach the people who are going to actually take this content and move forward. I'm trying to find the people who are actually going to take this content and make a change in their lives. I don't want tire kickers in this event. I don't want people who are just sitting by the wayside and deciding that they're going to one day. You've got knowledge and you're going to get knowledge. But what you need is to move forward. What you need is to actually make something happen. It's time out for wearing ourselves out and we don't have anything to show for it at the end of the day. It's time out for sacrificing time with our families. And at the end of the day, not only do we not have what we want in our lives, but then we don't even have our families around. And especially if you're like me today, if you're like me and you have a ministry and you have community commitments and you have all these different things that you are committed to, it can be very, very easy to cast aside the very people that are the most important to you. And we don't want that today. We want to get somewhere. All right. We want to get somewhere with our lives. You've been dibbling and dabbling with this thing for too long. You've been dibbling and dabbling with the money for too long. You've been robbing Peter to pay Paul for too long. It is time to move forward. And that's why I want you to go to wealthymein23.com and sign up for this conference. All right. Let me add this to the stream. Oh, that's the wrong slide. Oopsie. Let me remove that. All right. I wanted to show y'all the actual graphic for it, but apparently I got the wrong slide up. That's my speaker training slide. But you know, I'm so excited, y'all, for this conference. All right, so I'll figure that out while I'm looking at them. I'll figure that out. I'll get the right one uploading while I'm getting through the comments here. I see we have a lot of comments coming in. And I do want to talk to you about some of the real estate scams that are out there. But listen. As my son sometimes says, y'all have probably seen this. Listen, Linda. It is so important for us. It is so important for us to take action that is going to actually bless us in the long run. We've spent too much time chasing after all of these promises. We've spent too much time chasing after people who have dangled our hopes and our dreams in front of us and never made good on it. All right. So that's why I want you to come with me to our Wealthy Me in 23 conference. Let me get you that slide there. You can go to wealthymein23.com and you can come either in person at the Marriott Courtyard in Dallas, or you can come virtually on Zoom. But again, I am not opening this up to the public. This is not going to be on YouTube or Facebook Live. This is going to be a private event because I want people who will take advantage of what they're doing. All right, let me go to some of the questions that we have coming in. And I see somebody asked, am I the only one here? No, you're not the only one here, but you're the only, but I was in the middle of something, so I'm not putting up any comments while I'm in the middle of a statement. So let's go ahead. I see that you have a lot of issues with the current administration, and I'm very excited that you're here. However, I tell you what, we can blame whatever we want to blame on the administration, but every administration has issues. And this current administration is inheriting the problems of the last administration. And the last administration, if it were still in office, it would have to raise interest rates also in an effort to keep the economy from collapsing. So every administration, every person, regardless of your politics, it's always easy to blame whoever is in office. But the person in office is generally inheriting the good and bad decisions of their predecessor and their predecessor's predecessor. And so there's a lot of connection in there. And so I'm glad that you're on. But hey, if you've got a good question that I can answer about real estate scams, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to move forward. The Wealthy Me in 23 conference, thanks for asking. The Wealthy Me in 23 conference is actually $25. That ticket, if you're in person, includes dinner. If you are not in person, that ticket includes access to the recordings. Okay. And so if you are in person and you want access to the recordings, it's only $20.23. So we'll get that out for people here shortly. All righty. So let's talk about another popular real estate scam. And this is actually the question that motivated me to change this or to teach this class today. There's a concept that we teach when we do our creative financing. Anybody remember when we did creative financing? There's a couple of creative financing topics that we covered. So over the last year, we have covered, well, let me say it again. Over the last year, we have covered private lending. We have covered lease options, land contracts, which is owner financing. We have covered subject to. We have covered a lot of creative ways for you to invest in real estate. And there's one in particular that lends itself to being scammed. And when we talked about foreclosures, you heard a lot about foreclosure scams, and I'll cover that in a second. But the one I really want to talk to you about today really lends itself to scams is lease options. Now, I say this as somebody who in the states where it's allowed will do a lease option all day long. Why? Because I believe in giving people an opportunity to pull their lives up. I believe that there are people out there who are like me. They ended up in $800,000 of debt through no fault of their own, and life just happened and it knocked them down. The rug was pulled out of your feet. The rug was pulled out from under your feet and you had nowhere else to go. And I want to be somewhere where somebody like that can rebuild their lives. However, when I was rebuilding my life and someone took a chance on me, she didn't drop her rent so I would have a cheaper place to stay. She didn't drop her requirements to live in that apartment complex, but she gave me the opportunity I needed to get into a safe place and to rebuild my life. And I want to be that person for somebody else. And if somebody wants to buy property, but you know that your credit is trashed and you know that you can't qualify for a mortgage. Well, I like to work with mortgage brokers who do what they call manual underwriting and look at your bill payment strategies, your bill payment history. But sometimes, even with manual underwriting, you still can't afford to get a mortgage. But you know that you want to have a house and you know that you don't want to fall prey to rising prices and uncertain future. And that's where a lease option can really be beneficial for both you as somebody who's trying to rebuild your life and me as somebody who has been rebuilding their life through real estate. Okay? Because what happens in a lease option is you pay the landlord a fee to lock in a purchase price in a future time. So that option fee is going to be dependent on how long the landlord keeps the property for you to give you the opportunity to buy it at said price. So for example, if I'm renting out a property that's worth $100,000 today, and I could sell it on the market today for $100,000, and single mom comes to me and says, I really want to rebuild my life. I really don't qualify for the FHA loan, but I want to buy this house and I'm willing to rent it and take care of it like it's my own. And then in a year, I should be ready to buy the house. So I might say, okay, single mom, you have two choices. You can rent here at the regular rent price. And then when it goes on the market, whatever price it's at is what it's at. Or you can pay me an option fee now and we can lock in a price so that you can work with your mortgage broker and you can work to get yourself where you need to be in a year so that you can get this price. Doesn't that sound so good? I know it sounds good to me. And you know what? If I had been in that kind of a position where I used a lease option to buy a property, I would be one of the people who actually fulfilled it. But here's what happens with a lot of lease options. Most of the people who take lease options, they never, ever fulfill the term. And they keep paying option fee after option fee after option fee after option fee. In fact, it's so It's so much of a scam that there are many landlords who purposely market these to people who will never qualify to buy the house, know that they'll never qualify to buy the house. And some states have forbidden the practice. So if you are in Texas and you are in a lease option or a rent to own kind of situation, in 6 months, your name has to be on that deed. And there's some people who get around it by doing complete owner financing. So you're really buying the house with a recorded mortgage and everything. There's others who get around it with a 6-month lease term or a month-to-month lease term. Now, I got to tell you, we got to be very careful about these things, because even though I teach investors how to do it, the fact of the matter is a lot of investors do this kind of thing unethically. Okay. And so, all right, you know what? I see that somebody here is really wanting to make their case, and I'm going to just address this real quick. Let me tell you something about interest rates. When I first bought a house, you want to know what the interest rates were? The interest rates were like 12%. So don't come talking to me about no interest rate. You can make money with real estate no matter what the interest rates are. You can afford to buy your house no matter what the interest rates are. There are always ways to do it, and that's what we're talking about today. All right. So now, what happens if you want to be a real estate investor and you want to sell a property on lease option? Well, if you are an ethical investor, this is an excellent way to give a hand up, not a handout. However, if you are on the other side of it, okay, if you are on the other side of it and you are wanting to rent to own, or you are wanting to buy a house through this method, watch out, beware. Let my voice come into your head one more time when you are about to sign on that lease option. JJ said that most of the time, landlords who sell their properties like this, they know that the client is not going to be able to close, and they're just trying to scam me out of my money. Let me check this and make sure it's going to happen. Okay? Because couple things. If you could afford in a year to buy the house, you don't need to lock it up in a contract. But you might be afraid, as we have somebody commenting about interest rates, you might be afraid interest rates are going up. This is happening, that's happening. Maybe the landlord's willing to owner finance it, whatever it may be. Okay. But we want to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, that we are understanding all aspects of the deal. All right. All right. So next thing we want to talk, the next thing we want to talk about, and I guess I've reached a new level in my real estate investing education career, because now somebody's calling me a scammer. I love it. They had an agenda, and that's okay. The more negative, what do they say? All publicity is good publicity. That's not always true, as we're finding out in the news. But the thing is, if you can't make money in real estate, then you're not buying it properly. So let's talk about the next big scam in real estate investing. Okay. So we've talked about real estate investment meetings. I've talked about how to find a good one, which is you're basically looking for a group that gives you good education and has people that are really doing real deals in your local neighborhood. Okay. We also talked about lease option and how that can tend to be a scam for people who are buying real estate, but it can also be an excellent way for real estate investors to offer a hand up, not a handout. Let's look at hard money lending scams, and let's look also at private lending scams. Okay. Private lending is probably one of the biggest things that conflicts me as somebody who teaches real estate investing. Why does it conflict me when I teach real estate investing? Well, because I teach people not to take on debt. And unless you structure a private lending deal properly, it really does smell like, look like, act like debt. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, right? And so there are ways to do a joint venture. There are ways to do a limited partnership kind of situation where you've got a general partner and a series of limited partners. There are ways to pool your money and invest in real estate. In fact, I'm offering in 2023, I'm going to start investing here in the locality, and I'm reopening my look over your shoulder option for people to look over my shoulder and get a firsthand education of the real deals, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm also opening up for those that I've had a business relationship with or a personal relationship with for at least 2 years. I am opening up the ability to pool our funds and buy real estate with me as the general partner and you as the limited partners. And this is only open to people that I've done business with or had personal interactions with for enough time that we qualify under certain provisions, requirements of the SEC, right? I ain't trying to go to jail. You see this cute face? I am not trying to go to jail, but I am trying to help people get where they want to go. All right. And so one of the ways to do that is by partnering with somebody. Partnering with somebody in a private lending deal, however it ultimately is structured, it may not be an actual loan, but however it is structured, whether it's lending or joint venture, is an excellent way to earn while you learn. Now, there's always the flip side of that. You might find that you overbuilt a property, or the main investor involved overbuilt the property, and here you are, you put in your $25,000 and somebody else put in their $25,000 and somebody else put in $50,000, and you guys thought you were all going to do this thing with this house, and the investor overbuilds for the neighborhood and now it can't sell, and you might end up taking a loss. That does happen. In fact, it happened to me the last joint venture deal that I was a participant in. And that's what motivated me to start going out and rehabbing my own houses. Like back then, I was like, wait a second, I can do this. But I'll never forget the sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. I was teaching a real estate investor in one of my real estate investment class, and it was one of the first iterations of this class. So this was like, I don't know, this was years ago, but it was one of the first iterations of this class, and I'm using this property that we all went in on as a example, and my students are analyzing this property, and one of them's like, wow, they don't know it's mine, right? The students are analyzing this property, and one of them's like, wow, the investor overdid this, it won't sell in that neighborhood. And I'm sitting there watching what the research that they're doing and the calculations that they're coming up with, and I'm like, oh no, this property's not going to sell. And it didn't sell for a long time, and when it did finally sell, that investor took off with everybody's money. And that's when I was like, oh my goodness, I can do this. I don't need to be a part of somebody else's deal anymore. Now, have I been a part of somebody else's deal since? Sure, because I like owning part of a gas station. I like owning part of this and part of that, right? And those are things that I'm not in a financial position to own all of yet, right? But you have to be careful when you come to these things. So how do you know when somebody is trying to scam you? Well, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest reasons, or one of the biggest ways, that you can know that someone is trying to scam you is that they have all the slick marketing, they have all the right words, they really get you all up in your feels, they've taken a really good NLP class, but they don't have the results. And when you want to not commingle, that's the wrong word. When you want to joint venture with somebody, when you want to pool your funds, you want to make sure that that person who is executing the deal, who is doing the dog leg of the work, I don't know if that's the right phrase, the person who is doing the bulk of the work needs to know what they're doing. That doesn't mean that they're an expert, but it means they know how to tap into experts when needed. They need to have a team of investors behind them that if something goes wrong, they can reach out and phone a friend. They need to be able to be flexible of thinking on their feet and solving problems and having connections with trades, so that if things are going one way and it's not working out, they can call an audible and take it the other way. It's important to have somebody who has 2 or 3 various exit strategies for whatever property it is. But if I go in there, if I go to my real estate investor dinner and they're putting up this presentation, we're going to buy this house for $25,000, we're going to put $5,000 into it, and we're going to sell it for $250 million, then I know these people are not very reasonable. And if I've done just a little bit of research, if I've done just a little bit of understanding the neighborhoods that I want to invest in, if I've done just a little bit of understanding where and when things work in real estate, I can look at the situation and realize this person knows what they're doing or this person doesn't know what they're doing. And there are a lot of people out there who are big on taking your money and never delivering anything back to you. In fact, this is one of the great conflicts that I have, because, we always teach about you buy your properties in real estate in LLCs, and you make sure that you're protected. And it's one of those curious things. Like, the more my net worth becomes, the less I own. Like, the higher I grow in net worth, the less that JJ Conway has on paper. Like you do research and you don't find a whole lot of JJ Conway except for that one property that I'm still trying to sell from those $800,000 of divorce days, and we're getting so close to being able to sell it. But it's just, when it's 200,000 upside down and none of those government policies qualify, well, it kind of takes a while. So I really do think that it's important for us to understand. And that leads me into one of the biggest ways you can avoid falling prey to scams, real estate, crypto, romance, otherwise, is to know what you are investing in. Do not invest in something that you don't understand. One of the biggest ways, let me say it again, y'all, because this is big. Somebody needs to drop it in the chat for me. One of the biggest ways to avoid falling into scams, whether it's real estate, romance, crypto, or otherwise, is to not invest in anything that you don't understand. There's two great tests that I've always applied to whatever it is that I'm investing in or that I'm trying to bring other people into. And those are the grandma test and the Washington Post test. The grandma test says, can I explain this to my grandma? If I can't understand it thoroughly enough to break it down in simple enough terms that I can explain it to my grandma who grew up in an entirely different world than I did, then I ought not invest in it. The other test is the Washington Post test. Do I care if this ends up on the cover of the Washington Post? If I would be embarrassed, or if my family would be embarrassed for this investment to blow up in my face and end up on the cover of the Washington Post, well, then I ought not do it. Those two, what do you call that? Those two litmus tests will prevent about 99% of the scams you will ever get into. You've got to understand what it is, and you've got to be willing. You've got to be willing to let people that you trust look over your shoulder, analyze the deal, and walk with you. Walk with you. All right. So it's so important to understand. But the thing is what happens if you don't understand? What happens, like with crypto right now? There are a lot of people. I was doing crypto classes. I'm still buying crypto. I'm still researching technologies surrounding crypto. But I stopped teaching the crypto classes, not because it crashed. We can talk about that in a second, but not actually. I think we'll talk about that next week. Okay. Yeah. Let me make a note of that. I think we'll do crypto next week. I didn't stop teaching the classes because I don't believe in buying crypto, but I stopped teaching the classes because it was hard for me to explain to everybody that you are not investing, and everybody wants to invest and they want the huge returns. But crypto is not in that space yet. It's still squishy and malleable, and nobody knows what's going to happen. So real estate is like that for a lot of us. A lot of people who've been on this channel for a year, 2 years, you understand the concept of real estate investing. You've sat through my real estate investing 101 several times. And even though it's still a little uncomfortable for you, you feel like you have enough confidence that if someone like me would hold your hand through a deal, that you'd be able to get one done. And I'm really excited to see the growth that some of you've had, the properties that you've brought to me to analyze with you, in how you've invested in yourself and looking over my shoulder. But what do you do if you don't understand? If you don't understand something like crypto or like real estate or even the stock market, then my recommendation is that you don't spend money on it that you can't afford to lose. Now, that's really the crux of any investment, right? That's why we teach that you should have your emergency savings first. You should have all your debt paid off. Like, these are my recommendations. Get your debt paid off and get yourself a good savings account. A good savings account that's going to cover a couple months of lifestyle expenses in case something crazy happens, so that you have a cushion. So you go out and invest $10,000. Well, if it all blows up in your face, well, then you still have the cushion and you're not beholden to anybody with debt, so you can go out and invest, right? That's what I recommend for people, simply because a lot of times we don't understand how everything works. And I don't want you to lose money on things that don't work. But I also don't want you to look back 20 years from now and be like, man, I should have invested in Facebook. I should have invested in Google. I should have invested in Apple. I remember stories of people who, who missed out on investing in Apple, who missed out in investing in certain aspects of the internet, who missed out in investing in this new thing called the World Wide Web. Like, I remember these stories. I've lived through that era where all of that was happening. But one of the things that I know about that era is you just don't know what technologies are actually going to stick. And it's interesting because I've talked to you all before about how you had all these different PayPal like technologies. And when I used to have a web host company, I actually technically still do, but when I had my web host company, I learned how to do all these different PayPal like online payment things, but nobody knew which one was going to work. In fact, I remember thinking that PayPal wasn't going to last long because their terms for sellers were horrible. They would shut your account down for no reason just because one person complained. And yet, a lot of times, the people complaining were the ones who were the scammers, not the business owners. And so I didn't think PayPal was going to last, but it did. Another example of something like that, we were just watching the other day, The Toys That Built America, and they had one on video games. And when video games first came out, somebody had an idea, somebody stole the idea, and they turned it into their own thing, and they built Atari from a stolen idea. They eventually had to, in court, settle with the original inventor of the idea. But Atari was big for a while, and Atari grew, and all this massive growth came in the video game industry. And there were so many people who weren't sure if this was the next big thing, but everybody was trying to get in on it just in case. Well, then everything collapsed with Atari, right? So we don't play Ataris anymore. Anybody still got a 2600, right? I mean, you might. I saw one. I saw one in a GameStop not long ago, and I was like, "Wow, you're taking me way back there." But Atari as a company kind of folded out of existence. And who popped up? Nintendo, Sega, Sony PlayStation. Like these things popped up and they remained. And now we can't even imagine society without an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Nintendo or whatever the next thing is. Right. And so the original pioneers of that technology, they may have folded out of existence, just like crypto the current cryptos may fold out of existence, but the technology and the fact that people can harness the power of it to build wealth and change their generational tree, that will not go away. We just don't know what it is, which is why, just like with real estate, I'm telling you, don't invest in things you don't understand. What are my recommendations for investing? My recommendations for investing: get yourself a good savings account, get yourself out of debt, invest 15 to 20% of your income into good growth mutual funds and or real estate if you know what you're doing. Okay, with real estate, the easiest, fastest way, if you've got 20 years before you retire, the easiest, fastest way to maintain your lifestyle is just to put it in a good growth mutual fund, set it and forget it, right? Some of us, we had the rug knocked out, we had the wind knocked out of us later in life, and we had to start over from scratch later in life. And that's when real estate really comes in handy, because it's the fastest ethical way I know to build wealth in a hurry. All right. But you have to be careful of scams. Okay. So let's talk about some other real estate scams. And I'm going to scan the questions real quick. I'm going to scan the questions. I don't see a whole lot of questions in here. But if you have questions, go ahead and get them in here now, because I'm going to wrap up soon if I don't see any questions. But there's a lot of scams associated with real estate. But the biggest thing is to do your research. Talk to people and get references and understand what it is you're buying and what it isn't that you're buying. Okay. If you are a new real estate investor, please do not empty out your 401k and buy your first property when you really don't understand how to invest, how to look at a property and tell if it's any good, how to look at a property and see really quickly what the big things are that you're going to have to deal with. See, that's where you start to fall into scams. And we have to understand that real estate is a wonderful, wonderful way to build wealth. But you have to do things in a profitable way. And so a lot of what we find that people call real estate scams, they're actually not real estate scams. They're people who are investing improperly. So for example, you go to the real estate investment meeting. somebody gets up there and talks about how they prospect. They use bandit signs and they do this and they do that. They get the want ads or the Facebook ads and they age them for a bit and then they start calling them. Is that a valid tactic? Absolutely, it's a valid tactic. They've been teaching that tactic since I was in college and even before that. In fact, when my father passed away, I grabbed his real estate class that he had. Is it I was about to say Carlton Sheets, but I don't think that's a real estate guy. That might be a preacher. Oh, I think maybe it was Ron LeGrand. Whatever it was such an old kit that it was cassette tapes. And I was like, well, ain't none of my siblings going to be able to use this. So I have a cassette tape to digital recorder. And so I went and downloaded all those things. I mean, these tapes are from like the early 80s. It's the same tactics, y'all. It's the same tactics. The method might have changed, but it's the same tactics. So if you buy the class and you think, oh yeah, I'm going to go do this, that's not a scam. But what happens is we buy the class and we go out and we buy a property, $100,000 that's worth $100,000. Well, guess what? You buy a property that's worth $100,000 for $100,000, you're not going to make money in real estate investing. Now, you might over the long game, but who's got time for that? Most of us who are investing in real estate, we got a short time horizon. We got 10 years to retirement. We got 7 years to retirement. We got health issues that are pushing us to do this. So we got to make the most bang for our buck, which means we make our money when we buy. We buy the property at a discount. That's how true real estate investors profit from real estate. But you go out to this class and you get all excited and you buy 4 or 5 properties and you have mortgages on them and you bought them at full retail price. And now not only do you not keep them full, but now in the vacancy, the person who moved out tore it all up. And now it's like $40,000, $50,000 of damage. What are you going to do? You still got a mortgage. That's not a real estate scam. That's failure to walk with somebody who knows what they're doing. And so I'm going to encourage you again to come out to our Wealthy Me in 23. I'm going to encourage you to come out to our Wealthy Me in 23 conference where you will learn more about real estate. You'll learn about money management. You'll learn about crypto. You'll learn about how to adopt a millionaire mindset, your $1 million mindset. You'll learn about how to adopt how to build your $1 million network. You'll learn about how to invest in this volatile situation. It's gonna be good. All right. In fact, it's gonna be so good. I'm gonna say it again, y'all. I am encouraging you to come out. I am wholeheartedly encouraging you to get your ticket today for the Wealthy Me in 23 conference. It's going to be held 29 December live here in Dallas, about 2 hours away from where I live in Arlington, Texas, right there in the entertainment district. Your $25 ticket is going to include dinner. Or if you are virtual, your $25 ticket is going to include access to the recordings. You are going to learn how to develop a $1 million mindset, how to walk in the room and attract the money that needs to come to you to help you achieve your goals. You are going to learn how to build your $1 million network, how to connect with people who have shared values and similar goals where you all can complement each other. So we are complementing each other. We are collaborating, not competing. You will learn how to invest in volatile times right now. The economic landscape is so crazy and unpredictable. How can you invest in real estate? How can you invest in crypto? How can you invest in real estate? How can you invest in some of these new technologies without losing your shirt and without stressing out at night? You're going to get all of that action packed in just 3 hours with the Wealthy Me in 23 conference. I've got 8 dynamic speakers who are going to come in and show you how to elevate your life and get everything out of the new year that you desire. It's all happening the 29th of December, the Marriott Courtyard, Dallas, Arlington, as well as your computer through Zoom. This is not going to be a public event. It is going to be a closed event because I want to guarantee that the people who are in the room are action takers who will use this content to elevate their life. We're not hosting any tire kickers today. We want to see that you are willing to take action. You're willing to take what these precious jewels that we are giving to you in this conference, and that you are going to actually use them to move forward in your life. And the way you show us that is by buying a ticket. All right. Woo! All right. I hope you all have enjoyed this for today. I hope you all have enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed bringing this content to you. If you would like to see more of this content, I encourage you to subscribe to my list at jjclink.com/list. Follow me on social media at JJ Knows the Way. And if you are on Facebook, get yourself in my Build Wealth with JJ Facebook group, Building Wealth Together. It's facebook.com/groups/Build Wealth with JJ Conway. And we are going to be determining, this is where you get to have a role. We are going to be determining if you all want me to keep these Thursday night classes or if you want me to move them to lunchtime or earlier in the day. Because that's the decision we're going to be making in 2023. Are we going to keep this Thursday night that we've been teaching for 8 years? Or are we going to move it to earlier in the day where we can access a greater number of the population, or do both? We'll see. Your call. You answer the poll at Building Wealth Together, facebook.com/groups/Build Wealth with JJ Conway. Last but not least, if you are listening to this as a part of the podcast, I want to encourage you to get on my mailing list, jjclink.com/list, so that you can be notified when we go live. You'll be notified when we go live. We record these classes every, let me say that again. We record these classes every Thursday night, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern, and we extract from the classes for our Wealth Building Wednesdays, Mindset Mondays, and even sometimes our Avoid Scams Juice with JJ. All right. So you want to get these classes live. You want to be able to ask your questions live. You want to make sure that you subscribe. Now, before I close, one more administrative thing. My list has been broken for a month now, and I have gone round and round and round with the vendor. I can generate forms. I can generate web pages. I can add people to my list. I can look at people who've subscribed to the list, but it will not send out emails. It's been a month. I'm about to migrate to a new list because I'm like, for as much money as I'm paying you, I deserve some better customer service, and I'm not getting it. I'm not feeling the love. So we are moving to another platform. In the move to that platform, you might get some wonky messages. I might make a mistake here or there. I might accidentally subscribe you to the wrong list. If that happens, count it to my head, not my heart. I value each and every one of you who are on my mailing list, and I want to treat your account with dignity and respect that it deserves. In the move from one platform to another, there's always a few things that fall through the cracks. So if you don't start getting my emails back up again by mid-January, make sure you resubscribe or let me know. All right. I don't want to leave anybody behind today. No person left behind. Maybe that'll be our motto for 23. Nope. I think our motto is going to be Wealthy Me in 23. I think that's going to be the theme of our classes in 23. And I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited about what God's going to do in your life as you begin to apply these biblical wealth principles into your life. And I'm so excited about how we are all going to build wealth together. That's all I have for you today. I'm JJ Conway. Y'all take care and be blessed.